There's some kind of authentic mystery here, which my training in psychiatry just hasn't prepared me for.
When I first heard about this, I didn't believe it at all. Somebody says, "You want to meet Bud Hopkins? Who's he?" This was 2.5 years ago. "Oh, he's a man who believes in stories of people who've been taken onto spaceships." I thought he must be crazy, and the people he's working with must be. Not so at all. What I discovered was that he was talking about people who are completely sincere. They don't claim they've been taken by aliens anyways. They're very reluctant to come forward with their stories. The stories that they were telling consistently, as I began to meet with these people myself, there was nothing in my psychiatric work over 40 years that prepared me for the consistency of these stories, the fact that they're told by children as young as 2 years old with physical marks, cuts, scoop marks, and the rest, the association with UFOs, and that these are not people who are mentally ill. And there's nothing in my background that prepared me for this set of experiences.
Well, I first had to satisfy myself about what the phenomenon was, that it was not psychosis, it was not some strange dissociative condition, not some neurosis, not some contagion from the media. In fact, it has no resemblance to any psychiatric condition that in my 40 years of work in this field I had recognized. It's not some displaced abuse, all those things which naturally my colleagues and I think of in relation to this. This has its own structure, its own quality.
Because as a psychiatrist, you would be able, first of all, to identify certain psychotic states, certain mental states, and therefore dismiss the stories as being a result of that. And two, you would also, with all the skill that you have, I mean, you're a top American psychiatrist at Harvard, you would be able to tell when people were telling fibs.
That's what I'm supposed to be trained to do, is to distinguish between fantasy, dream, psychosis, or authentic experience. And this has all the marks of authentic experience.
Because even if only some were lying, you would see an underlying pattern, wouldn't you, of either lies or mental disturbance. And the underlying pattern is people telling the truth.
Right, and these people don't want this to be true. I mean, they sometimes will come to me and want me to make it go away and give them a pill, and when they find other people are having the same experiences, they become shocked and tremble, and it freaks them out.
I've seen many people that come to me wanting to have a psychiatric diagnosis, wanting to be told that they have a neurosis or even a psychosis, and become very disturbed when I say, "No, I don't understand this. You're having these experiences, and I can't explain it."
They're looking for some other explanation.
It's what I call the anything but syndrome.
Okay.
I went through it myself. I mean, I've looked at every other possible explanation as thoroughly as I can, and nothing plausible has emerged. I might say there is not in the literature, I always throw this out to audiences, there is not in the literature or among the reports a single case of alien abduction experience that has revealed behind it, upon examination, something else.
I've had people come to me saying, they want to be told this is a dream, a fantasy. Even I had a man that came to me just last week and said, "Doctor, I'm coming to you because I want you to tell me that I'm crazy. I don't want to believe that these experiences are real. The implications for this person's worldview are so staggering." But as Freud once said, theory doesn't prevent facts from showing up.
Here was this paradox of these people who are, as far as I could tell, I've investigated 90 of these cases now, sound of mind, completely believable, not believing it themselves, telling me with great doubt, not trying to claim anything or sell me anything. In fact, rather disturbed when they would hear there were other people who'd had the same experiences, because that would blow their denial, wanting to believe it was a dream. A point in the interview where I would say, "Well, tell me what happened." And they would say, "Well, I was in my bedroom watching TV, and then this blue light." And I said, "Well, you didn't say you'd been asleep." And then tears would come down their cheeks, and there would be this moment of shock because they would realize it wasn't a dream. Something had really happened.
As a psychiatrist, you are telling us they're not mentally ill. These are not delusions we're talking about.
Absolutely not. They're troubled people because, as you heard from Pat and Michael, these are very disturbing experiences, and they have a kind of post-traumatic quality to them. But it's not just post-traumatic, because this can happen again to them at any time. It's not like over once it's happened. And those experiences are disturbing, but the disturbing feelings, experiences they have does in no way accounts for the experience. What is causing this? That's the mystery.
Otherwise sane people having these highly traumatic, very dense, highly articulated, detailed, congruous experiences, which can begin
to be reported in children as young as 2 years old associated with UFOs in otherwise sane people. So I had to start by satisfying myself that this was not something else. Okay. Then I can begin not from my own speculations, but from the information that the abductees themselves get from the experience. I'm beginning to put together a structure of what this is about.
If these people aren't hallucinating, if they're not part of some kind of mass psychosis, if they are experiencing something, what's your conjecture?
No, of course, that's a 64 billion pound question. I mean,
we can't pay you if you answer it.
I've finally come after thousands of hours. I was told for 2 years, don't say what you think here. Don't say what you think. Just say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, you know. But after a while, the pattern becomes so powerful, so dense that the only thing, I mean, no kind of psychiatric illness, so not hallucinating, fantasying, some other kind of trauma, none of it begins to work because you have the UFOs, you have the cuts, the scoop marks, the independent witnessing, the people are absent. So some kind of another intelligence seems to be trying to knock on our doors to get through to us.
Something here.
Well, we like things this way or that way, you know, it's a subtle matter. It's perhaps preparing us slowly, gradually, letting us, because if they kind of showed up en masse, we'd panic or send out the RAF or something.
In spite of the fact that the people that come to me know that they're going to encounter some disturbing memories when they come up, they feel that they have a major part of their life that they're not in touch with, and people don't like that. They don't want to feel there's a whole secret life that they've been through that they can't get to. So what happens is, yes, there are some very disturbing things that happen in the hypnosis sessions. Memories come back that are sometimes overwhelmingly intense and disturbing, but as they come to grips with those memories, they become much more solid, sure of themselves. They feel that they have an ally in me. They meet other people who have been through the experiences. They feel less cut off and isolated. And the overall effect is a constructive one. You know, so it's like going through the dark night of the soul, in a sense, but coming to a place of making peace with the experience.
Well, you could think of the divine, or if you can think of the world of both spirit with form and spirit without form, or the anima mundi, whatever your language for it, the Great Spirit, the Holy Spirit, whatever it is, we have lost contact with it. It signals us, we don't listen.
My sense is that something, and stay with me here, something in the individuals can be paralleled in the culture. In other words, as the individuals go deeper into their own experience, acknowledge that it has some truth, even though it's a mystery, they don't know what it is, some kind of spiritual opening, some kind of expansion of the sense of self occurs, which is constructive, creative. And I think we could maybe do that in the culture. In other words, if we could just get beyond this, are they here, are they good, we're scared of them, what are they doing, let's shoot the messenger that tells us they exist, let's deny the whole thing. And
didn't you have to do that to write the book?
Yes, if I went through this too, and I think we could as a culture maybe, if we could acknowledge that maybe there are other intelligences out there. They may not take the form that we were taught in Sunday school, but maybe if we could admit there is some intelligence, that we are living in a universe that is not dead and lifeless, except on Sundays, but actually contains beings and spirits that all other cultures around the world know and have known, and our culture knew it until 300 years ago, that if we could admit that reality, maybe we could open to some kind of deeper experience of our own, learn to live in harmony more fully with other life forms here, and maybe some growth as a collective could take place.
There are various ways that certain people have revelations and experiences. Occasionally, the more advanced spiritual people among us are reconnecting with the spirit. But for most of us, the only language that we know now is the language of the material world. So it's as if the divinities say, okay, if that's all you understand, I'll give it to you in the material world. I'll give you physical manipulations, I'll give you reproductive connection, I'll give you cuts, scars, scoop marks, I'll give you burned earth where the UFOs land, and I'll give you an experience which is consistent among various people, which empirically everybody agrees, they're photographs of UFOs. It's showing up in the physical world. It may not be of the physical world as we know it, but it communicates in the physical world, and when something shows up in the physical world that belongs in the spirit world, that gets the stiff-necked materialists very excited. Now, they want physical proof, just like in empirical science because all other faculties of knowledge have been atrophied. But this gets their attention because it shows up in the language we understand, which is the physical language.
I think we're stuck in a certain place that nothing is real unless it's in our physical world. This may not come from this physical world. This may be asking us to open to some larger realities, okay? To constantly try to force every human experience back into the box of the world
serve as an
that we
introduction to
restricted
Dr.
ourselves to.
Cohn.
How do we decide what's true or what's real except on the basis of shared experience? That's how we decide. Agreement in the culture that something is real, that something is powerful. We could say these people are, that this is a product of imagination, but it doesn't work like that. These are not matters that any of these people want to have be true. These are very disturbing experiences to them that they themselves reject. There is the lesions on people's bodies, like Dave is describing. There is the burned earth. Many cases that have been documented. You can just deny it, but there's Linda Howe. Many other people have got photographs, have demonstrated that this exists. There are pregnancies that have disappeared, not proven medically, okay? There is shared experience around. There are people actually witnessed to be missing during the time that the abduction is reported. A number of implants have been analyzed. I thought that was going to be the smoking gun. I was looking for the smoking gun too. And those, when analyzed, do not demonstrate some bizarre set of metals that are not found on Earth. And what I've come to is that this phenomenon has some subtleties to it.
There are folklorists who say that we have been visited by little people for centuries, if not for millennia. But this form of visitation has a hard edge to it that is different than what we've seen before. It started with the Betty and Barney Hill case, and since then there have been hundreds and moving now into the thousands of reported cases which have a kind of structure to it which is unlike what we've had before. There are similarities to previous visitations, but the modern abduction phenomenon has a distinction which has to be studied in its own right.
Nothing that we've experienced prepares you for the power of what these people go through during the hypnosis sessions. The intense fear, the body shaking, the rage, the sense of humiliation. It's completely persuasive because of the emotional power of what comes forth. It just cannot be fantasy. It cannot be something that's made up. And that's what's hard to convey if you're just looking at the content of the report.
The cuts, the scoop marks, the lesions that show up on people's bodies, unlike the stigmata, have no relationship, as far as I can tell, to the personal dynamics, the wishes he was talking about, the feelings, the psychology. In fact, they bear no relationship to that person's psychodynamics. In other words, it's not something that fits into their psychology or any pattern that I've been able to discern.
Excuse me. It's nonsense to attribute this to the hypnosis itself. Increasingly, I'm seeing people who remember a good deal of the story before hypnosis. They remember being taken on to the spacecraft. They remember the beans. But the experience is so disturbing that the mind puts it down and puts it out of mind, and anything we can use to help people relax and go inward and bring back the experience can help bring it forward. But to say that because they're filling out the experience with hypnosis, that therefore the hypnosis generates it is not right.
25 to 30% of these experiences are without hypnosis. When the matter is of core importance to the individual, that is deeply traumatic.
I need you because we're out of it.
Deeply traumatic, hypnosis is a valid instrument. It is a traditional way of recovering memories. And whatever you may think it is, it seems to me there's so much evidence that something is going on here that we can't explain. Why is this treated with such fear, derision, ridicule, often in the culture? I mean, I don't understand that myself.
From getting on with what these powerful experiences that are happening to so many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, what does this mean for this culture? A lot of the people who have these experiences, actually, when they face up to them and when they really go into it deeply, grow as human beings.
Do you know what it means?
I don't know what it means, but it certainly means something that could be maturing for us as a species if we faced up to it.
Case after case, the person will remember in hypnosis or without hypnosis that some kind of device was placed in their nose or in the vagina or in the penis in the case of one man, and they feel that they've been tagged, much the way we tag animals in a herd when we want to be able to track them. It's the experiences that they are doing this so they can be found again, and sometimes they will abduct the person, remove the implant as occurred in this example Dave gave, put in another device, but the idea behind this appears to be some way to monitor or keep track of the people that they're working with. What is alien motivation and intention? And that's what we know the least about. The question presumes that in some way we accept the reality of it, and I think as we accept the reality of this phenomenon, whatever that means, in other words, whether it's from some other dimension entering our dimension, but something important is going on here, and we open to it, I believe that they will become less subtle. Right now, they fear us. We attack them when they show up. We are frightened of them. We try to, experiences actually swing their fists at them, try to knock them down. So they're worried about us. They paralyze us because they're doing things that are distressing to us, and then we, in turn, understandably, react with fear and aggression. So as we begin to open our spirits or open our souls to whatever reality this is, and when that happens with the people that I work with, they become less aggressive, they show up more powerfully, and maybe at some point they will allow themselves to be better known to us. But right now, they feel, or whatever this is, their intention is, I don't know, but they enter our world in a subtle way. They don't make themselves fully manifest. And I don't know why that is, except what I said.
Abductees themselves on the ships receive intense messages about ecological destruction, annihilation of whole forest systems, pollution of the water system, visions of the planet dying, and they see that on television-like screens. They get it through telepathic communication, and these are not environmentalists, these people. They are people who are very simple, ordinary people, unremarkable, except that they are getting this extraordinary information. And they actually become intensely, passionately concerned about the Earth and what's happening to the Earth, and their children do, because their children may be abducted as well. So that's one piece of information. The other piece of information is they experience themselves as not in control, being taken against their wills, being treated the way we treat animals, tagged with implants, having physical, emotional experiences in which they're utterly terrified and without being able to control what's going on. And that, for them, brings home how we treat other creatures on the planet, our kind of, as was discussed at this conference in Prague by Ralph Metzner, this kind of humanistic arrogance, as if the only creatures that were really important on the planet were ourselves, and we were superior in some way to all of the life forms. This phenomenon shows us that we are being treated the way we treat animals, as if they existed only for our pleasure, and they totally transform how they treat animals, how they treat the earth, how they relate to the environment around them. So through this experience in the body, because that's the important point here, this experience is not just information in an intellectual sense. They experience these abductions in the body, and as several abductees have said to me, we only know the body now as embodied creatures. If you want to reach us, you have to reach us through the body, because that's the only language we understand. So that tells us that the creatures are real in some sense.
Hi, this is for Dr. Mack. What are the most common or consistent physical descriptions of the aliens that people have encountered?
The 4 or 5 most common types are the so-called little grays, who are 3.5 to 4 feet tall, sometimes a little taller, big, large eyes, no ears, no hair, sort of pear-shaped heads, thin bodies. Sometimes there's a somewhat taller gray who's the leader or doctor seen on the ship. Then there are kind of reptilian ones that have scales that seem to be very functional and are rather scary looking, sometimes described as looking like praying mantises. Then there are tall, luminous ones that are aren't necessarily solid, which have a kind of more spiritual mission, often 6, 7 feet tall. Then there are humans, or more human-like beings that work along with the grays on the ship. And others have seen all kinds of other beings too, but that's just a brief capsule of the more common ones. I don't know the purpose. I know what the basic structure of the experience is, which has 3 parts to it. It has this breeding program, which appears like a joining of our species, which is very densely embodied, and the alien species, which is much less densely embodied, which seems to be a very difficult project because the hybrids don't seem to be very vigorous. So that's one thing. Second is there is some kind of information exchange going on. They are conveying to us on monitors and telepathically that the destruction we are wreaking upon the earth is causing damage that is affecting the cosmos, is not just an earth-level damage. And the third dimension is, in some way, this is opening the experiences, people like Dave and Cindy and Sharon, to a higher dimension, a higher sense of themselves. Some kind of spiritual opening, evolutionary process is occurring. So those seem to be the three effects of what they do. But whether that's their intention or not, I'm not sure.
Can I make one more point, which you
Make it, dude.
Okay. If you want to shatter the Western mental structures, the Western mind, so to speak, which is now permeating the whole earth in its materialist, dualistic philosophy, the way you do it is you take something that's supposed to be in the spirit world, because even in the West we can make allowance for the spirit world, and we can study it through mythology, through religion, through imagination, through poetry. But the one unforgivable sin to the Western mind is when something that should be in the spirit world transgresses and shows up in the physical world. That traffic is the cardinal sin for the Western mind. So it has great power to shatter the belief structure of the Western mind when that occurs. And that's precisely what's occurring in this abduction phenomenon.